Rents are starting to fall around the country, but they're falling in the places that rose the first and the fastest first. Does that make sense? This is a normal cycle, and I'm going to explain the downward pressure it's about to put on homeowners, investors, companies like Redfin. This data comes from Redfin. The story is out of investor. I can't even find it now. It's not even on Business Insider. And it's entitled, "This U.S. region is seeing the biggest rent declines as owners struggle to find vacancies." Now, first, when we're talking about Redfin, because this data comes from Redfin, I want you to understand this. Redfin's housing price data, all the revisions they do, all this stuff, they're doing some wacky things. Same with Zillow, same with Realtor.com. Their housing data is not audited, okay? Now, as publicly traded companies, their financial information is audited, but their housing data, the way that they calculate the housing prices or the estimates, these are not audited. And I don't even work for KPMG. I don't need to work for them to even tell you that. The truth is, this data, you're going to find out in the future, has been very skewed. Realtor.com, Redfin, Zillow, and other companies alike, along with the National Association of Realtors and other real estate associations in different states, only make money if people are buying and selling homes. They are all in the hurt locker right now. The same amount of homes last year were sold, were almost identical to the all of 2008, okay? That means we are moving into a crash. Now, the only way that the Fed and the government can stimulate that is to open up floodgates on lending. But because we're dealing with a national inflation epidemic, let's say, pandemic, epidemic, can I say those words? Those aren't even the right words. You know what I'm talking about. They can't lower the rates. All right? Now, it says here, metros in the Sun Belt are notching the steepest rent declines in the country, Redfin reported. It says, leading the regional trend is Austin, Texas, where rents fell 6.6% on an annual basis last month. Runners up include Nashville, Tennessee, Jacksonville, Miami, and San Diego. The Sun Belt has built a ton of new apartments in recent years, partly to meet the surge in demand brought on by the flood of people who moved in during the pandemic housing boom. Redfin senior analyst Bokhari said in a report, but the boom is over and now property owners are struggling to fill vacancies, which is causing rents to fall. Now, it's not just the places that are empty that are going to be the victims of this. So you build massive apartment buildings and you can't get them filled, so you start dropping prices. What it does is it affects all of the landlords in the region because people start looking around and seeing these big signs, first month's rent free, special move-in deals, things like that. And they start to call and go, whoa, I'll save $400 or $500 a month if I move out of my place. And they start leaving their places, leaving those houses vacant. And there's going to be a big shift in population moving. And it's not just Austin, like I said, San Diego and Miami, Nashville. There's going to be this big shift moving around. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a collapse in the real estate. That's the next part. And prices start falling even more because landlords that once had tenants fill their spot are not filling them. Their vacancy explodes, their vacancy rate, and they have to start figuring out different ways to bring in money. And one of those ways is sell the property. So your inventory increases. That takes some time. But now, I want you to understand this. This is going to be really hard for a lot of people to understand. There's a phase where rents collapse. There's a big migration or a shift. Then inventory starts to hit the market, especially what we're going to see with Airbnbs. People are having to list Airbnbs all around the country because they're either being not filled because people have less money to go on vacation, spend money on Airbnbs, and they can't lower the price to compete with hotels, or they're seeing their Airbnb business attacked because local politicians are saying, hey, we're getting enough fuss from the local public that we want to shut down Airbnbs. Or I just saw in like Lake Tahoe, they're starting to do a special assessment on second homes. Like if a home is vacant for a certain amount of time, then they're going to put a special assessment on a tax. Well, that also would go for Airbnbs. If you can't fill your Airbnb, hey, you're going to get taxed. So people are going to start flooding the market with these homes. Well, then what happens that next cycle and this is a multi-year thing, just so people understand. The next thing that happens is rents go back up, because as foreclosures start to pick up, people are getting kicked out of their homes or taking deals from the bank and walking away, cash for keys. Then they have to go find a rental because they can't qualify for another house right away. So they fill up those rentals, and then we see a surge in demand for rentals. So there's an awesome time as the market starts collapsing to sit there and go, you know what, I'm gonna start picking up rentals, and I'm picking them up a lot less than what they were going for a couple of years ago, and then I'm going to rent them to the people that are losing their homes. This is, real estate cycles 101, but most people don't talk about that. They don't teach that kind of stuff because they were either not in the real estate market during the great financial crisis, or they were victims of it. And I still have yet to find any real estate investor that really made it out unscathed, to the point where, I mean, there are a lot of investors that did fine, just fine. What I'm saying is that they didn't sell ahead of time. They didn't see it. So they just went through it, muddled through it. Their tenants they still paid rent, some maybe missed rents every once in a while, but by and large, they made it, right? They survived, but they didn't take advantage of selling at the top and buying at the bottom, right? So not a lot of people really understand cycles. However, this last, great financial crisis really brought us into a whole new realm of understanding when it comes to investment cycles and how they play into Fed funds rates, right? How the interest rate cycle really affects them. Now it says here, now nationally, the biggest rent drop actually took place not in the Sun Belt, but in Seattle, Washington. Median asking rent fell 7.3% year over year in the northwestern city, Redfin cited. But the reasons were no different. Like the Sun Belt, the metro witnessed a boom in construction. Outside of these areas, the trend isn't a nationwide phenomenon. In fact, U.S. asking rent rose 1.6% to $1,648, marking the first gain in a year as home builders grapple to catch up with demand. Okay, let me explain that, because a lot of people hear these stats and they go, oh, no, see, it's still going up nationwide. So in large metro areas, rent is super expensive, very expensive. It's very hard to pay rent and make a living and still save money at all with the average income in those cities. When they're talking about national rent, we're talking about places that are very inexpensive to live in comparison to these metros. So to go up 1% is normal because we're seeing inflation rise. And so with added interest, insurance costs, all kinds of different little things that investors are having to deal with, cost repairs, things like that, it makes sense that national rents go up. That's totally normal. Okay. What I'm looking for is the big cities to collapse, because what has fed the nation as far as the first wave of inflation, that was the big exodus from massive cities into or like big states like California and New York, things like that, flowing into places like Tennessee, Nevada, just name them, Texas. I mean, you could then the states go on, right? So this mass exodus, that's what fueled that first part of the rise. Well, now the second part of the inflation rise was the Fed actually raising borrowing costs. That was the second part. And you could sort of mix that in with some supply chain issues too, but by and large, it was the interest rates. So now you have this next wave of inflation, this FOMO wave, that's really going to knock the economy on its butt. But my point being is, we've got people that are going to start moving around, and there's going to be massive loss in some localities where investors were super stoked. They bought on super tight margins. They didn't buy the property right. And then they are screwed. Totally screwed. I'm excited. I hope you guys got something out of this. The Economic Ninja is out. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do a whole new video because of something that just happened. As a matter of fact, I think he just drove behind me. Yeah, he did. I'm going to do another live stream with a different title. It's about, I just met the opposition. So stand by. I'm going to go live in like 3 minutes. All right. I got to tell you the story.